Sitting on the couch, she felt as if she owned the house, and, in fact, she practically did. She looked at the elderly couple in front of her, who had mistreated her in the past. She could see traces of regret filling their eyes. Pathetic, she thought. Humans only learn when you push them to their edge, and that's exactly what she was doing today. What are you saying? Kim Dae-hyun, Taehyung's father, asked in disbelief. He couldn't believe that a mere poor girl, who happened to be his son's girlfriend, was saying all this. I never knew you were dumb, Mr. Kim. I can't believe I was doing business with a Dumbo for years, she scoffed, swirling the red wine in her fingers elegantly. She was no longer the poor roadside orphan that they used to trash around. She had transformed into a classy, beautiful young lady, the most successful one of the continent, having expanded her business, which she inherited in Korea and beyond the continent, becoming one of the top 10 most successful and richest people in the world. If only they knew that the poor roadside girl was not what they thought her to be, they would have treated her like a princess. But well, they might have thought she was lying just to take revenge on them, right? She snickered at the thought. Well, since I guess you have some problems, let me repeat myself. I, Mariano Dracius Stephania, cut all the deals with you and am taking back all my shares and money that I invested in your company. Here are the documents, she said, pointing to the documents with her eyes.
I hate all this overthinking, The more I swim, the more I'm sinking. Take me to a world of silver, no more heartbreaks, tears, painkillers. Take me somewhere unfamiliar, bring me back to where we started.
Well, since I guess you have some problems, let me repeat myself. I, Mariano Dracius Stephania, cut all the deals with you and am taking back all my shares and money that I invested in your company. Here are the documents, she said, pointing to the documents with her eyes. Kim Dae-hyun scoffed, not believing her. You think I will believe you? You pathetic roadside orphan. How dare you come here and threaten me? And how dare my guard even let you in? He said, trying to intimidate her with his dark voice. However, she only chuckled, knowing that he had failed miserably. In fact, he was intimidated by her, while she only sat there sipping her wine, eyeing his miserable figure pathetically trying to justify himself or get out of this situation anyhow. William! His wife screamed as his guard came running a few minutes after he called. How dare you let this miserable roadside orphan enter my property? She said, pointing at Yn, who was simply sitting there and chilling, watching the drama with interest. The mocking smirk never left her face as she twirled her hair strand with her hand occasionally. I'm sorry, ma'am, but she is no orphan, William tried to say, but Dae-hyun cut him off. Who the hell told you she is no orphan? Her are these third-class thugs she brought. He screamed at him, trying to assure himself that it was nothing but empty threats and that a poor beggar like her wouldn't be able to do anything to his empire. But only if he had listened to William, who was desperately trying to tell him that his elder brother worked for her and that she really was Mariano Dracius Stephania, and not some poor orphan, but God really wanted him and his wife to suffer, doesn't he? Yn scoffed, standing up from the couch and dusting off her long, elegant silk gown. The gown was probably more expensive than their whole mansion. She made her way towards Kim Dae-hyun, who was breathing heavily after his outburst. She tapped his shoulder lightly, pouting her lips in a fake manner, which made her look cute. However, the darkness in her eyes hid the cuteness and gave her a cold and sexy vibe, making her more beautiful, elegant, and classy than anyone he had ever seen. She was also richer than most people. Kim shook his head, removing the thoughts from his mind. He could not believe he was getting attracted to his son's girlfriend. He thought he had lost his mind. However, he was not the only one attracted to her. Many men were attracted to her because of her personality, elegance, and beauty, but she did not even look at them. She only loved his son, who had betrayed her so badly that she probably would not look at any other handsome young or old men ever again. Mr. Kim, I see you really despise people who are underprivileged and not born with a silver spoon like you were, she said, brushing his shoulder and making him look at her. She stood tall, making him feel small under her gaze. I was initially planning on having mercy on you, but since you really despise the poor and have no respect for anyone's hard work, how about you start from the beginning like all the normal people who were not privileged did and make your way up? She said with a smirk, making him widen his eyes as he shook his head. He knew what she was talking about. She was planning to throw them out on the road, as they would not be able to pay her debt. She would take all their properties, everything, even the house they were living in. That was how much they owed her. No, you won't, he said, finally accepting reality. What are you saying, Taehyung? She is no 𝘗𝘢𝘳𝘬. She is a poor orphan who happened to get the pity of our son and is now showing us her real pathetic side. Throw some money at her face and throw her out, his wife screamed, making him snap out of his trace. She is right. You are probably threatening us because he thought for a while, and then a thought struck him. I know it now, he said, smirking and making Won look at him. You were able to prepare all this because of the papers you stole from us, right? You probably sold them to some rich company, copied 𝘗𝘢𝘳𝘬's signature, and now you're giving us empty threats for money, right? He said, smirking. But listen, I won't be giving you a penny, he said, making Won laugh loudly. She brushed her hair back and laughed for a long time, then looked at him and his wife. The papers you are talking about. I didn't steal them. Why would I steal from my own firm? Your dear wife made your son's mistress steal it for her, and she gave it to her brother, 𝘗𝘢𝘳𝘢𝘳, she said, smirking as she saw his face pale and the look of betrayal in his eyes. His wife's eyes widened. She had never told this to anyone and had only used Lily to get the papers in exchange for letting her marry her son. How did Won know? What's wrong, Mr. Kim? Can't handle your wife's betrayal? She left you for someone who has tried to destroy you multiple times. And since you were too busy saving your company after I cancelled our deal, your son's mistress got arrested for theft as well, Won said, patting his shoulder. He looked at his wife with a mixture of hurt and betrayal in his eyes, but she couldn't meet his gaze. Why? He whispered, looking at her. How could you, Ijun? Did you forget what he did to us? To our son? To our family? How could you? He screamed, making Won smirk. He was falling, he was miserable, Taehyung. I couldn't see my younger brother miserable. How could I, when I raised him? She stuttered. Even after what he did to our unborn baby? Did you forget how he killed our son just to get my property? He said, his eyes filling with tears. He couldn't handle her betrayal. This was probably his karma for treating that poor orphan girl poorly. I'm sorry. He's like a child to me, his wife sobbed. He shook his head, not buying any of it. Won sighed, fed up with the drama. Pack your things and leave my house, or I'll have to use force and legal methods, she said coldly, walking out of the room. Evan followed her behind. Taehyung watched as his family fell apart. She broke his family just like he broke her. He looked at her, smirking as she enjoyed his pained face. She destroyed everyone he cared for, and the pain on his face made her satisfied, even though somewhere deep down, a small part of her already shattered heart hurt as well. But she ignored it. She was amused when she saw him on his knees, tears flowing down his face. Why wouldn't she be satisfied? She destroyed everything he loved, his family, his mistress who was pregnant with his child, and his company that he worked so hard for. I'm sorry, he mumbled, looking down. I promise I'm really sorry. Please. He looked at her with teary eyes as they flowed down his face endlessly, unable to stop. Seeing his parents' miserable faces, he couldn't take it anymore. Seeing how miserable his father looked after all his hard work went in vain, he fell down on his knees, crying and looking at her desperately, trying to see the small amount of care or love he had seen for him months ago. But there was none. Please leave them. Take me instead. You can beat me, kill me, do anything with me, but please leave them. Please, Hwan, please, he pleaded, making her roll her eyes. You don't have to plead so much. They'll get a job in a small apartment after spending a few months on the road. I'll make sure of it, she said with a serious face, a small smirk appearing on the corner of her lips. He held her hand, looking at her as his tears finally fell freely. She removed his hand from hers harshly, not hearing his pleas as he kept on crying and calling her name. Although he knew they deserved it, he couldn't bring himself to give up on his parents. They were the ones who raised him, sacrificing everything for him. No matter how flawed they were, they had loved him unconditionally all his life and had even given up their own careers and dreams for his sake. He could let go of everything else, but he couldn't remove the love of his parents from his heart. Despite his pleas and cries echoing through the mansion, they fell on deaf ears this time.